The fire crackled in the center of the clearing, casting long, flickering shadows on the faces gathered around it. The forest had gone silent as the last of the marshmallows browned over flames, and the wind sighed gently through the trees. No cell service, no electricity, just the soft rustling of leaves and the quiet murmur of people preparing for one last round of campfire stories before bed. That's when Logan stood up, brushing pine needles from his jeans. "All right," he said with a mischievous grin. "How about I tell you 6 real creepy camping stories to keep you warm tonight?" No one objected. The air grew still, and Logan began. First story was about an old friend of his named Jackson. Jackson had gone camping deep in the Appalachian woods with his girlfriend, Melissa. They had a secluded spot near a forgotten trailhead. Everything had been going fine until the second night. Around 2 a.m., Melissa woke up to the sound of soft footsteps outside the tent. She assumed it was Jackson returning from the woods, until she rolled over and saw he was still asleep beside her. Frozen in fear, she didn't move, not even to wake him. The footsteps circled the tent slowly, methodically. Then something or someone began whispering. It wasn't in English. The sounds were wet and strange, like someone gargling syllables. The next morning, there were boot prints in the mud, leading from the trail and back again. Jackson didn't believe her at first, until they noticed claw marks along the side of the tent canvas, high up, about 7 feet from the ground. Next came the story of Eva and her 2 brothers, Cole and Darren. The siblings had gone backpacking in Colorado. One night, while camped beside a mountain stream, Darren said he kept hearing something clicking in the woods, like rocks being knocked together. The sound would come and go all night, always a few dozen yards from camp. Thinking it was just wildlife, they ignored it. But the next morning, when Cole went to refill their water bottles at the stream, he found a pile of small rocks arranged in the shape of a stick figure. They laughed it off, thinking it was a prank. That night, it happened again. This time, there were 3 figures made of rocks and twigs outside their tent. 1 tall, 2 shorter. Eva kicked them over in frustration. They packed up and left first thing in the morning. But as they hiked down the trail, they found another rock figure at a fork in the path. This one had no arms, just a flat stone where the face should be, with 2 small holes poked into it. The group didn't stop until they reached their car. Darren later found similar symbols in an old book on Appalachian folklore, linked to forest guardians that didn't like trespassers. The third story was about a solo camper named Patrick. He was an experienced outdoorsman, usually calm and rational. But something happened to him in the Idaho panhandle that he never quite recovered from. He'd set up camp near a large alpine lake. It was late September, so the area was practically deserted. The first night was peaceful. The second night, however, was not. Around midnight, Patrick heard someone yelling in the distance. It was far off, echoing across the water, repeating the same word. Help. At first, he thought it might be a prank or someone genuinely in trouble, so he grabbed his flashlight and headed toward the sound. But every time he moved forward, the voice stayed the same distance away. It never got louder or quieter. Patrick eventually stopped and called out, "Where are you?" The response came instantly, mimicking his voice exactly. "Where are you?" He turned and ran back to his tent. The voice didn't call out again. But in the morning near the lake's edge, he found a single bare footprint in the frost. It was human, but it had 6 toes. The 4th tail came from a couple named Lindsay and Brent. They had been on a weekend getaway in Oregon's dense Tillamook forest. Brent was a photographer and had brought along his drone to get some aerial shots. On their 3rd day, he launched it from a hill near their campsite and flew it high above the canopy. As he reviewed the footage later, he noticed something odd. A man, dressed in all white, standing completely still in a clearing several hundred feet away. The man wasn't near any known trails, and he didn't seem to be moving at all, just staring up at the drone. They joked about it that night, thinking it was maybe a forest ranger or another camper. But later that evening, when Lindsay went to collect more firewood, she saw someone in white standing just behind a tree about 50 yards away. The figure didn't move. She ran back to the campsite, screaming. Brent didn't see anyone. They packed their things and left immediately. When Brent reviewed the drone footage frame by frame, the man in white was there in one frame and gone in the next. No movement. Just vanished. Fifth was a story told by an old ranger named Tom, who had worked near Yosemite for over 20 years. Tom said one of the eeriest things he ever experienced was when a group of scouts went missing in the 90s. They were found the next day, sitting silently in a cave about 2 miles from their campsite. When questioned, they all gave the same response. She told us to come. No one ever figured out who she was. The scouts wouldn't say more. But later, Tom found drawings inside the cave, hundreds of them, done in charcoal and ash. Every picture showed the same thing, a tall woman with long arms and hollow eyes. What disturbed him most was that several drawings showed her standing next to their tents at night. There had been no adults or women in the group. And finally, Logan leaned in for the sixth and most unsettling tale. This one had happened to his cousin, Rachel. She'd gone camping with 3 friends in northern Michigan, close to the Upper Peninsula. They had found a hidden spot near a lake and stayed up late drinking and telling stories. Around 1 a.m., one of them, Mikey, said he saw a man standing at the tree line. No one else saw it, and they told him he was just drunk. But a few minutes later, a rock flew into their circle of chairs. They thought it might be a bear, so they banged pots and shouted, but the rocks kept coming. Finally, they got into the car and waited until morning. At dawn, they went back out and found that something had carved a spiral into the dirt where their fire pit had been. Worse, when they looked at their tents, all of them had been unzipped and carefully opened. Nothing was taken. Nothing was broken. Just opened, like someone had peeked inside. Rachel said she remembered hearing faint breathing near her tent, but assumed it was one of the others. They drove home that morning and never went back. The fire had burned low now, reduced to a bed of glowing embers. The group around a campfire sat in stunned silence, the shadows now darker, heavier. A few nervous glances went toward the woods. Logan smiled as he threw one last log on the fire. "Sleep tight, everyone," he said, settling back into his chair. "Just remember, some things in the woods don't need an invitation." No one spoke. Somewhere in the trees, a twig snapped.